Hi everyone, welcome to the Stat Programming. Today I'm going to continue talk about the part 2 about ADaMIG version 1.2, okay, about the fundamentals of ADaM standard. So as I mentioned before, I'm only talking about the important ones or the ones that are more tricky or need your attention. Some may be very straightforward. I don't want to mention about that. Okay, this is the ones that I think is more important and need your attention. Okay, about the fundamental principles. Um, the first thing is about the traceability. You need to provide traceability for your ADaM dataset, and your dataset must be readily usable with commonly available software such as like SAS, R, uh, JMP, or SPS or other tools. Uh, FDA may use a JMP or other tool to use your dataset readily. And your dataset or metadata like Define.xml must be machine readable. Okay, so here they talk about more about traceability. You can check this section for more details. So when traceability is successfully implemented, it is possible to identify these items. So this is the rules that when you do the traceability to make sure these information are ready. So I don't want to read out for each of these. Check out that. Because traceability most of time is it can be ignored by many programmers. Uh, they just don't put much traceability between ADaM and SDTM datasets. About ADaM data structures, there are three sets of data structures, as I mentioned before. They are ADSL, they are OCCDS, and BDS. So here you might to be aware that there's only one dataset called ADSL. Any other datasets with one record per subject would be members of other classes, which means that, for example, you have a dataset called ADbase, which basically it includes the baseline records for each subject. So the structure uh, is one record per subject, but here you cannot classify this ADbase as subject level analysis dataset. Okay, you cannot do that. It's only one that's for ADSL. And ADSL should have variables like population flags, planned actual treatment variables, demographic information, randomization, subgrouping, um, and also the stratifications. These are the new for 1.2. This is the new requirement for 1.2, ADaMIG 1.2. Okay, and for the common variables, you may know that for ADSL, usually they have some common variables that will be copied directly over to any other uh, ADaM datasets. So for the common variables, you might need to consider to include like statistical model covariance, population flags, subgrouping variables, um, also and other variables like some identifiers. So at the minimum, you should include these variables for the common variables. And ADSL here, it basically means ADSL should not be necessarily too large. So you need to keep it simple, but also include the key information for your study. So I see many studies that the ADSL dataset are really, really big, more than 100 or 200 variables. That, that's not that's not efficient from my point. You can move some of those variables out of ADSL to make it more efficient. For the BDS, I will talk that more. Read through this section. To mention about optimal number of ADaM datasets. Here, there's not a really clear rule for how many number of datasets you have for submission. So my understanding is that you make your ADaM dataset as the structure should be straightforward. You don't want your ADaM dataset to be mixed with BDS and also OCCDS, two kind of structures mixed together and other structure mixed together. That's not the good way. The good way is make it simple, make it straightforward. If you need more number of datasets, that's okay. It's easier for both programming and for the FDA review. They also want these kind of simple datasets, not complex. We don't want the structure to be mixed too much. Okay. So about the standard ADaM variables, here is about metadata. Some column like type is either character or numeric. For the data types, then sometimes you can divide it more like text, integer, or float. And now talking about the variable conventions. This one is important. There's many details here I want to make you more aware. So for the variable names must be no more than 8 characters. Start with a letter but not underscore. You can have only letters, underscore, and numbers. Okay? And the variable label, the label cannot be 40 characters or longer. And the character variables, the whole length cannot be 200 characters more in length. Okay? And for this W is usually a single digit 1 to 9. And the XX 2-digit usually for like 01 until 99. And it's the same thing for this Y is 1 to 99. Okay? There's not 0 credit. And similar for ZZ, it is 01 until 99. And this one is basically tells you that so if data set you have a variable like analysis flag 02, you don't need 01 flag. So this is not required if you want to have this variable. Okay. And for the variables that directly copied from SDTM, it is a requirement that is variable name, label, meaning, and the values has to be exactly the same. But there's one thing you can change is the length. The length can be modified or trimmed, whatever. So the length, there's no requirement for the length, has to be exactly the same. Okay? And here mentioned that SDTM variables like SEQ variables is very good practice that you keep these variables into ADaM dataset for traceability. Okay, this is quite straightforward. And this one, so when ADaM standard variable's name has been defined for a specific concept, the ADaM standard variable name must be used, even if the content of ADaM variable is direct copy of the content of a SDTM variable. So yeah, so that means if there's a ADaM variables that can be used, you have to use that ADaM variables, even it's direct copy of the content of SDTM variable. For example, this eval is may copy just copy of this standard value, but you have to rename as eval, not this one. Okay. And this one means that for the primary variable, for example, this one, and this is the primary, this is the secondary variable. So secondary variables ended with n. The first has to be ended with c. For TRTP is kind of pair, and the same as a period. So this kind of special case, many times, kind of variable pairs, the first primary c and the second is n. And similar as the sex and the race. There's an exception that for SDTM datetime character variables is a different rule. Okay. So variables end with FL, character variable flag variables. Its value has to be Y and N cannot be missing. And these are the grouping variables. Okay, timing variable. For those timing variables, we have to have a formatted. So these can be reflected in the metadata field specification. You have to have a format for the timing variables so that we will not lose any precision. So here is mentions about if your dataset or your SAP define that the relative variables, relative day variables like dy has to include day 0. Usually we use day 1, start from day 1. But if you do need day 0, then this variable name cannot end with dy. Have to use other name. Can use dy2 or dy other. Don't, you cannot use dy for the day 0. Okay. For the ADaM relative day variables, we don't need use these variables as the reference date. Okay. You can have different definitions for the relative day or time in different data sets. They don't have to be exactly the same definition for the relative days. Okay. So about data time imputation flag variables. So these variables, DTF, TMF, those are the imputation flag variables. So whenever there's an imputation, those variables need to be there. So here in this table, we show you the imputations. Those variables usually either it will be blank if the date is complete. If they're missing the date, then use a D means date. So here missing the month, so use a M. Those values are used for this DTF imputation flags. So here just generally means that when you compare the date or time difference, usually the DTC is not good candidate for that. You might need to use other variables because it might have lots of imputations and not directly easily compare because of this imputation. About flag variables naming conventions. So for the population flags, they must be presented in ADSL. For the subject level population flags, all those has to be ADSL. Okay? And for the character numerical subject level population, they end with FL and FN. For the parameter level is for PFL or PFN. The record is RFL and RFN. So be aware of those naming conventions. And for the values of these population flags, you can see for the subject level, there's the null are not allowed. Same for the for this numerical variable. So null is not allowed. But for parameter level and the record level, those flags, the null value are allowed. So they are allowed. So so please take more attention that your variable values is either y and null or just y and null. So take more attention for those flag variables. For the naming of fragments, as you can see, it's quite straightforward. For group variable, we have gry or gy. For flag, you have fl. or fn for the numeric. You have dt, you have time, you have date and time, you have date imputation flag, time flag, imputation flag. You have dy, the relative date. You have additional fragments for the naming convention. For example, the baseline BL, CHG for change, FU for follow-up, OT for on-treatment, RU for running, SC for screening, TA for table, TI for title, and the units, and you have washout. Okay, so that's what we have for today. Next, I will talk about all the ADSL variables.